Welcome back, everyone. Today, we're going deep on a topic that's super relevant to, well, pretty much everyone. Collaboration.
Especially in education, we're seeing a real shift.
Yeah, and specifically how it plays into project-based learning. That
Yeah.
hands-on approach.
Exactly. It's not just about knowing facts anymore.
Right.
It's about working together to solve those real messy problems, like the ones we face every day.
We've got a ton of research on this, and one thing that really struck me was this idea that traditional classrooms, lectures and
Mhm.
memorization, they might be missing the mark, especially for the 21st century.
Totally. One of the sources, it actually quotes Alvin Toffler, the futurist. He said something like, the illiterate of the 21st century won't be those who can't read, but those who can't learn, unlearn, and relearn.
Whoa, that's deep.
Right. Adaptability is key.
Makes sense. I mean, think about how fast the world's changing.
Yeah.
We need more than just memorized facts.
You need critical thinking, creativity, and the ability to, bounce ideas off each other, solve problems together.
Those are the skills employers are screaming for, right?
Right.
Collaboration, communication, it's all connected.
Exactly. And the Partnership for 21st Century Skills, they call these the 4Cs, like essential skills for today's world.
I'm so surprised that project-based learning, or PBL, is getting so much attention. It's like a mini version of the real world.
Totally. Another source, it talked about how PBL tasks students with, tackling these complex problems, the kind that don't have one right answer.
The messy stuff, huh?
Yeah. And that's where collaboration shines. You get different perspectives, different strengths, and you come up with solutions that you wouldn't have on your own.
But let's be real, not all students love group work.
True, true.
I mean, I remember those days like, ugh, another group project.
Yeah, and one of our sources actually addresses this. Developing norms for successful collaboration, I think it was called. It gets into those common complaints, like the unequal workload, personality clashes, that feeling of not being heard.
It's tough, for sure. So how do we make group work less painful?
Well, it starts with setting the stage, right?
Hmm.
Creating a classroom culture where teamwork's valued, everyone feels respected, and communication is open.
Seems good, but how do you actually pull that off? Kids, they can be a handful.
Oh, for sure. That's where establishing norms comes in. Think of them as ground rules for how everyone interacts.
Okay, but I've seen it a million times, right? Students agree to those rules, then boom, things get tough and it all goes out the window.
Totally. The key is involving students in creating those norms. So it's not just a list on the wall, it's something they own.
So collaboration starts before the project even begins. I like that.
Exactly. The source even suggests, having students brainstorm their past group work frustrations, turning those negative experiences into positive norms.
So I always end up doing all the work becomes,
Right. It becomes, we all contribute our fair share.
that's clever.
It flips the script, right?
Yeah.
It's not about the teacher dictating rules. It's about the group deciding how they want to work together.
This source also talked about team structure, especially for students with special needs.
Oh, absolutely. It's so important. Opportunities abound. That was the source. It highlighted how intentional team structure can be especially powerful for students with, diverse learning needs.
Yeah, making sure everyone feels supported and can contribute their strengths.
Exactly. There's a story in there about fifth grade teachers planning this recycling project, and at first they were worried about how to include the students with special needs.
That's a common concern. It can be tough to figure out how to meet everyone's needs in a group setting.
Right. But then they had this aha moment. Instead of focusing on what students couldn't do, they started thinking about what they could do, like their unique strengths and talents.
So instead of limitations, they look for opportunities.
Love it. Yeah. One student, they were visually impaired but amazing at art. Another struggled emotionally but was a natural performer.
Wow, it sounds like they really created a win-win situation.
Totally. By strategically placing students on teams based on their strengths, everyone had a chance to shine. The source called it student asset optimization.
I like that, student asset optimization. It reminds us that everyone has something valuable to offer.
Totally. And project-based learning, when done well, can really nurture that. It creates this space where those skills and talents are valued.
Okay, I'm seeing how powerful this approach can be, but how do teachers actually identify those assets and create those well-structured teams?
That's a great question, and one we'll definitely explore further as we continue our deep dive. But first, let's make a closer look at the different work styles that come into play during collaboration, because understanding those styles can be a game changer. Sometimes we forget that not everyone approaches work the same way.
Yeah, totally.
And one of the sources actually breaks this down, talking about these 4 different work styles.
Oh, work styles, huh? So is this like those personality tests?
Kind of, yeah. Enhanced learning with collaboration is the source, and it talks about drivers, expressives, amiables, and analyticals.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Break it down for me.
So each style has its own, like, strengths and weaknesses when it comes to teamwork. Drivers, for instance, they're the take charge people, the leaders, action-oriented,
The get it done folks.
Gotcha, exactly. They keep projects on track, make sure deadlines are met. Then you have expressives, super enthusiastic, always coming up with new ideas.
The brainstormers. I love those guys.
They bring the energy, right?
Yeah.
Spark the creativity. But sometimes they can get so caught up in the ideas, they forget about the practical stuff.
Makes sense.
And that's where the amiables come in. They're the
Yes.
peacemakers, focused on making sure everyone gets along and feels heard.
Well, we need those.
Yeah.
Every team needs an amiable.
Right. They're the glue that holds the team together. And lastly, you've got the analyticals. Detail-oriented, all about accuracy and planning.
The ones who make sure everything's done right.
Yep. They catch the mistakes, think things through carefully. So imagine a team with all these different styles.
Like a well-oiled machine, each part working together.
Right. But just like with any team, understanding each other's strengths and weaknesses is key.
Makes sense. So you can't just randomly group students together.
No way. You got to be intentional about it. Think about those work styles, how they can complement each other.
It all goes back to that student asset optimization.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Recognizing that everyone has something unique to offer and making sure those skills are actually being used.
I'm starting to see how project-based learning can do so much more than just teach content. It's about like building those social emotional skills too, right?
100%. It's preparing them for the real world, where you got to work with all sorts of people.
But, okay, even with good planning and clear norms,
Yeah.
they're good at conflicts, right? That's just part of working in a group.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So what can teachers do to, like, keep things on track when those disagreements pop up?
Well, one source, your team is a gift. It talks about regular check-in points being super helpful.
Like status updates.
Yeah. It lets teams see their progress, identify any roadblocks, and get back on course.
It's all about communication, huh?
Yeah.
Between team members and with the teacher.
Absolutely. And it's not just about, hey, we finished this task. It's about creating a safe space for students to, share ideas, ask questions, even disagree respectfully.
Because disagreeing can be a good thing.
Right. It can lead to deeper understanding if everyone feels comfortable speaking their mind.
So again, it's about valuing those multiple perspectives.
Exactly. And that ties into those norms we talked about, having a framework for healthy communication.
PBL is as much about learning how to work with people as it is about the actual content.
I'd say so. It's about giving students the tools and confidence to handle those interpersonal dynamics.
Which are pretty essential skills, no matter what you do in life.
Oh, yeah, totally. And project-based learning, when done right, can really foster that.
So we've talked about setting the stage, creating norms, structuring teams, and navigating those inevitable conflicts. What else can teachers do to really support their students throughout this whole process?
One thing that's crucial is fostering a culture of risk-taking, where students aren't afraid to make mistakes.
Because mistakes are part of learning, right?
Exactly. In a traditional classroom, there's often this pressure to always have the right answer. But in PBL, it's about encouraging students to try new things, step outside their comfort zone, and see those mistakes as opportunities to learn.
So it's less about, being perfect and more about embracing the process.
Totally. It's about developing that growth mindset, seeing challenges as chances to learn and improve.
I'm really seeing how PBL can be so much more than just like a teaching method.
Mm-hmm.
It's a way to foster a love of learning, create a sense of community, and build those skills that'll help students succeed in, everything.
You got it. It's about creating a learning environment that's engaging, challenging, and empowering.
So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, what are the key takeaways for our listeners? Whether they're educators, parents, or just, people who love to learn, what should they be thinking about?
Well, for me, the big takeaway is that collaboration, especially in project-based learning, it's not just a nice extra,
It's essential.
It's essential. It's how we get students ready for, everything that's coming at them.
We've got to equip them with those 4 C's, right?
Right. Critical thinking, creativity, communication, all of them, but especially collaboration.
And it's not just okay, everyone get in groups and figure it out.
No. It takes intention, Building that culture of collaboration, setting clear expectations, and actually supporting them throughout the whole project.
Yeah, we talked about establishing norms, being thoughtful about team structure, recognizing those unique assets each student brings.
And the teacher plays a big role too, right? Guiding the communication, encouraging kids to take risks, helping them work through conflicts.
It's a lot,
Yeah.
but it sounds pretty amazing when it all comes together.
It is. It is. There's nothing like seeing students collaborate, using their different strengths to create something really cool.
And it's not just about the final product, right?
Nope. It's the whole journey, the
Yeah.
skills they learn, the confidence they build, the way they learn to work together.
It's about preparing them for, well, life, really.
Exactly. How to navigate relationships, be part of a community, solve problems in a world that's, constantly changing.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's like that one nugget of wisdom you'd leave our listeners with? Something they can apply to their own lives, their classrooms, their, whatever.
Hmm. That's a good one. I'd say embrace collaboration. Don't shy away from it. Reach out, connect, share those ideas, and, work together towards something bigger than yourself.
Because when we do that, when we truly collaborate, that's when the magic happens.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So, to everyone listening, think about your own experiences with collaboration, what works, what doesn't, and how can you use what we've talked about today to, make those experiences even better.
We'd love to hear your thoughts. Keep the conversation going. And until next time, keep learning, keep collaborating, and most importantly, keep those creative sparks flying.